And what kinds of methods do you use to try to engage students in that sort of activity?
Well, recently I have, at least in my lower level classes, I have moved away from assigning them essays because I don't think that you actually learn dialogic thinking by talking to yourself. So they work in teams, and so there's dialogue there. But often what you get is one strong personality, and the team will sort of push the team in a particular direction, and that's pretty normal. Instead of having them write essays, I have them do posters in teams on the same subject. And then we have a poster session. All the posters go up. And as in a poster session, one member of the team has to stand by the poster, has to answer questions about the poster, and they're answering questions to other people who have read all of the same materials. And so when I did this last time, I had students arguing about the material that was in the posters. Now, I think what's useful about history, and particularly medieval history, is that everybody has been dead for a really long time. So nobody has a horse in the race. I shouldn't say that. There are confessional horses in the race. But if I ask people about, the massacre at Limoges, for instance, in the course of the 100 Years' War, was the Black Prince justified in ordering the massacre? Nobody's related to those people. Nobody has an emotional stake in their death. They're able to be more dispassionate about it. It's a lot harder to do about things that are more recent. We may be writing about the past, but we're writing for us. So what I'm going to be doing, for instance, in a seminar that I'm teaching in the spring, you, I think, use the word seminar to mean a discussion section, whereas it's a very small class, just you and your students. For pre-service teachers, they are going to have to teach world history when they get to high school. And they are wedded to textbooks, which they think represent a sort of disinterested truth. They're going to read 3 different textbooks. They're going to compare them. We're going to talk about what is behind those textbooks, the modern ideologies and intellectual moves that have shaped one narrative in one way and another narrative in another. We're going to be using a textbook which represents a revolt against Eurocentrism. So it talks about the Crusades twice, once when it talks about the Byzantine Empire and once when it talks about the Muslim Empire. But it does not talk about the Crusades from a European point of view. We'll talk about another one, which is sort of very interested in cultural development and, sort of monotheism. Sort of can't we just all get along? And then they'll have a very traditional third one, which represents what we sometimes refer to as the West and the rest. It started out as a Western civilization textbook, and the world has sort of been crammed in at the corners. So that they can see the different kinds of choices that are being made, even in this very general kind of source. And of course, their final assignment will be that they will design a lesson to teach the material in one of those chapters, or one period. So that's a way to get them thinking about perspectives. In one of my undergraduate classes, I'm working very hard on the issue of audience and the ways in which texts get written for a particular audience and they reflect the values of that audience. My students are finding that a tremendously difficult concept, but they're working on it. And I'm hoping as well that when they think about audience, they will find it easier to think about people in the remote past as being actually people who are like them in certain basic ways, like to have fun, love their families, but are very different in the way they think about the world. And that one's the difficult one, because they tend either to think that people who think differently from them are stupid or vicious. And since they're fairly nice students, they tend to go for stupid.
Okay.
And they tend to mistake technology for intelligence. So if your society is not very technological, then that must mean that you're not very intelligent. And what's been very interesting to me, I started this class by asking students the one paragraph version, what happened during the Middle Ages and why do you say that? Because we're trying to get at the narratives that they bring in, which tend to interfere with the way we want them to think about the past.